Welcome to my series, Who's Who in the Nativity Story, where we're taking a look at some of the notable people and celestial beings involved in the birth of Christ. Today, we're talking about the mysterious men from the East, the Magi. So, who were the Magi? Let's start there. The Magi were from the east of Israel, so Persia in that area, and they were considered to be priests, if you will, in their own hometowns. They were considered to be knowledgeable people, wise people, who were responsible for overseeing the religious activities in the towns where they lived. They also studied the night sky, and they would study the night sky in order to become aware of anything that was going on. It was kind of like, are there signs in the night sky of something happening in the universe? And that is the case with what happens with the Magi here. So the Magi become convinced that there is a celestial event that has unfolded and that they need to uncover what that is, and they decide to take this very long journey across a whole bunch of land, a whole bunch of territory, to go from where they were in Persia to the east of Israel and go into Israel, follow the star, if you will. And we all know that story about how they followed the star. Now, what we don't necessarily know is how many there were. Through songs and folklore, we hear that there was 3, but there could have been more. There probably were more. And it's just not the 3 of them. They had a big caravan going with them to support them on their journey. And it would have taken them a fair amount of time, a long time, to cross over and get to where the star was leading them. But eventually, they make their way to Jerusalem. Now, in Jerusalem, King Herod recognizes that these Magi, these wise men, have come into his land, and he wants to know, why are you here? Like, what are you doing? What do you want? Why did you just show up? And so he invites them to his castle, or his palace, if you will, in Jerusalem, and he has a conversation with them about, well, what are you doing here? And they say, well, we're following the sky. Something has happened. It's an amazing story. The King of the Jews has been born. That is a big bombshell for Herod. I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, something interesting is happening. He immediately perceives this as a threat. It's a threat to his kingdom. And now he's very interested about, well, where is this person who is born King of the Jews? And now the Magi don't necessarily know where Jesus was born, but they know, but Herod knows there's a prophecy about him being born. So he brings together the scribes and the teachers of the law, and they ask him, what is the prophecy related to a king being born? And they say, well, it's from Micah, and it says that the king will be born in Bethlehem. Now the Magi know where they're going. They're going to Bethlehem. And Bethlehem's not very far. It's only 7 or so miles. And King Herod, who is a liar and a deceiver, says to the Magi, go and visit him and worship him as a king, and then come back and tell me all about it, because I would like to worship him too. And we know that's a lie, because that's not what he wants to do. He wants to protect his kingdom. So the Magi make their way from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, and there they find the Holy Family. And this is probably a couple years or a year or so after the birth of Jesus. They find the child, they see Mary and Joseph, and they bring their gifts to Jesus. And this is a very common story. We've heard it many times. The gifts they bring things that are fit for a king. Gold, which is fit for a king, the frankincense, which is an incense, and myrrh, which is used when you're dealing with a body. So all of these gifts have different symbolism, and they all mean something to the life of Jesus. And they actually bow down and they worship him. I think this is really notable because why is this so important? It's because they're the first Gentiles to recognize that Jesus is the Messiah, the Savior. They come from a faraway land. They come to where the baby is, the child is, and they fall down and worship him. I love that because it shows us how everybody in the world was involved in this story, including people who would have been considered outsiders. So I think that's very meaningful. I think the Magi are extraordinary because they are willing to leave their home and follow what they feel is an important celestial sign and travel a great long distance to find out what it means. Like, I don't know, if it were me, I'd be like, well, how far is it? And how long is it going to take? And what do I have to bring? And what's going to happen when we get there? But they're very much up for the adventure, and they start in their home country. They travel the distance. They meet with Jesus, the Holy Family, and they give their gifts, and then they leave. They go back a different direction because, of course, they don't want to do what King Herod said, which was to come back and tell them. They're warned in a dream not to do that. Don't go back there. Don't tell King Herod. And they are obedient with that as well. So I love the fact that the Magi acknowledge the divine. They come to find the divine. They're seeking the divine. They come to find it. And when they're in the presence of the divine, they share their gifts and they worship him, just as we all do. So the Magi are really cool. They're wise. They're cool. They're interesting. So thanks for listening to my story about the Magi.